Hello, everyone. Good evening. Um, Welcome to our class for today. I would like to give 5 minutes so that, we just have 44 participants in the room, and I know we should be more than that. So I will be giving 5 minutes. Please, party chairs, invite your um, party members to the class. Please remind them of the class. So I'll be giving 5 minutes. So at 5:05, we'll be starting the class. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone. I think we have had enough time to invite your party members. So my name is Chiamaka Ezani, and I'll be your moderator for today. And I want to introduce our speaker for today. His name is Samuel Stephen Waduk. Samuel Stephen Waduk is a Nigerian economist, sustainability expert, and financial sector professional with over 2 decades of experience spanning commercial banking, public service, and central banking. His expertise covers economic policy, resource governance, research, history, environmental and social sustainability, climate change, and regulatory frameworks. He holds an MSc in Sustainable Resources, Economics, Policy, and Transition distinction from University College London in 2020, an MSc in Economics First Class from Nine University Abuja in 2016, and a BSc in Economics Second Class Upper from University of Jos 2002. A recipient of the prestigious UK Shevin Foreign and Commonwealth Office Scholarship, he is deeply committed to evidence-based policymaking, economic governance, and sustainable development. Sami is actively engaged in economic research, policy analysis, and sustainability integration. As a subject matter expert and faculty member, he's also involved in developing and facilitating ESG frameworks, sustainability and climate policies, and strategies for green and inclusive economic growth. Beyond his professional roles, he has contributed to various newspapers on economic and national issues. As a speaker, he has participated in high-level forums, including the African Development Bank's ESG Forum, where he shared insights on building sustainable finance ecosystems for Africa. His contributions to learning, research, and financial sector development reflects his dedication to national progress and the global south. Sami also leads qualifying a social enterprise network on automating a policy dialogue by simplifying economic, social, and sustainability policies. He currently teaches economics for non-economists on Facebook, Sami Best, and LinkedIn, simplifying the complexity of economics for a broader audience. Please let us welcome our host and our speaker for today. Sami, please, I want to hand over the mic to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, I'm having some little issues with network, but if you can hear me, thanks for having me. Thanks to the participants and good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
It's just 7 minutes. I'm trying to. Just let me try and share again. Please, can you see my screen now? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we've taken like 9 minutes. I will just set the ball rolling. My name is Samuel Stephen Wadok. You can call me Sammy. The topic for today or the class module is simplifying policies as it has been introduced. So I can go straight. We have some module objectives. They might be long, but I think at the end of this class, I want the participants, it's expected you should be able to define a policy, define a public policy, appreciate the core concept of economic, social, and sustainability policies, learn how these policies are developed and implemented, identify the connections between these policy dimensions. You can differentiate long-term from short-term policy goals, and you should be able to state why policy matters. You can also explore practical tools to engage with and evaluate policies. You should be able to mention the roles of citizens in developing policies. I am very sure this is why all of us are here. These are the objectives. You might not be able to know all, but if you can be able to pick or achieve some of these objectives, I think the essence of you being in this class will have been achieved. I don't know if I wish this was a class where we see face to face, where we can talk, interact, but I'll try and make it as interactive as possible. So bear with us. You all know what a policy is, but I don't know how many of us here maybe let's just give an example. When you are growing up, your parents had a policy that nobody stays beyond 7 p.m. outside. So it is expected no matter who you are, no matter where you are, once it's 6:59, latest 7 p.m., everybody is back home. That's like your father's policy or your mother's policy. So that's a policy. So generally, policy is a set of principles, right? Rules or guidelines formulated and implemented by organizations. I just gave an example of a family's principle, a family's rules, a family guidelines. We can go further and look at policies. They provide a framework for decision making and ensure consistency in addressing societal, economic, or environmental challenges. Sometimes not all policies are complete in themselves. I don't know if you understand me. It's just like a framework. So just look at a bed. For those of us that know what a bed is, that everybody here has a bed or has seen a bed. Let's look at that wooden bed. Remove the mattress. You see, a complete bed will have been your mattress and the wood, or for those that use metal, the metal and the foam, right? But you can have a frame. That wood, that metal is the frame on which somebody else can decide to come and put a foam and sleep. Somebody else that might not afford the foam can put a mat. Somebody else can even just come and put, let me say, carton. What I'm saying is that sometimes not all policies are fully developed as laws or guidelines or principles. They provide framework. And I gave example of policy. You can have an education policy for a country or a company's policy or operational policy. Remember, my definition here is just policy generally. I will go to the next, which is public policy. So after telling you what policy is generally, public policy here now has to do with everybody, has to do with a country, has to do with a government. So if you have a policy in your workplace, it's not a public policy, that's company policy. If you have a policy in your place of worship, it's not a public policy. That's an institutional or organizational policy. If you have a policy in a town union or age group, or what do they have? These road union workers. That is a group policy or union policy. When we are talking of public policy, it refers to the system of laws, courses of action, regulations, or priorities implemented by a government to address issues affecting the public. The key words I want us to see here is implemented by a government, be it local, state, national, the governments that affects the public. So if we're making laws for private individuals in their homes, in their organizations, in their churches, in their mosques, it's not a public policy. It is formulated by government of different level. I think I've stated that, where I say state, local, or national. The key characteristics, that's the key features of a public policy. It's government-driven, issue-focused, action-oriented, and dynamic. And this class is supposed to be for people that are aspiring to political positions, not necessarily partisan politics. You could be appointed, you could be elected, you could also serve as a legislator, you could serve as a watchdog. In short, for just being a citizen, wanting things to work well in your country, in your state, in your local government area, in your village, in your township, you are already participating in governance and public policy. So because of that, we should be able to look at the stages of policy making. I don't know how many of you here do not know how to cook, right? I don't know how many of you here do not know how to cook. But let's assume for the purpose of this transaction, can you see my laser? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay, for the purpose of this class, let's assume everybody knows how to cook. And I want to believe that you don't eat. Eating is the last stage, right? Nobody goes to cook and start by eating. What do? You think of what to cook. Okay, I'm hungry and I want to cook. So I've identified the problem. When you have realized that your body is sending you signals that you are hungry. Sometimes you are not hungry, but because you know you need to eat breakfast, you need to eat lunch, you need to eat dinner, or there are times of the day that you are supposed to eat, be it once or twice. You've already identified the problem. So in policy making, is just let's look at it like cooking. We have the problem identification stage where you recognize and define issues that requires government or institutional intervention. So if we realize that there is flooding within our estates, or as a local government employee or chairman or councillor, you realize that there is a street or an area that is flooding, you know that that is the problem. You've identified it. So after you do that, what do you do? So after you realize that you need to cook lunch, you set an agenda. You decide, are you going to cook rice? Are you going to cook yam? Are you going to cook soup? You see, if you are depending on what you are going to cook, you prioritize. If you are going to cook rice, you should have rice. If you are going to cook yam, you should have yam. Or when you do not have, or if you do not have, you decide to say, okay, how much of my money can get me how much of rice or how much of yam? You are setting an agenda, right? After that, you formulate a policy. So you've gone to the market, you've bought whatever you want to cook. You've identified the problem, you've set the agenda, then you sit down and say, I'm going to use this pot that can serve 3 people, or this pot that can serve 4 people, or let me cook just for this meal. When I come back tomorrow or in the evening, I will cook again. Perhaps you might just want to cook what can take you both lunch and dinner so that you don't need to come back and cook. In doing that, you are already formulating a policy. So you develop possible solutions or strategies to address those issues you've identified. After you do that, you adopt the policy. So assuming you have family, it could be you and your siblings, you and your children, you and your parents. You now decide to say, okay, let's cook rice, or let's cook only for lunch, or let's cook for lunch and for dinner. You now said, after we've agreed, we now adopt the fact that we're going to cook only lunch. In doing that, what do? You have now adopted that policy. And that's the formal decision to implement a specific policy. It could be through legislation. That's the one that goes through a lawmaking. It could be through executive orders. That's the one the president or the governor or the executive chairman makes a pronouncement. It could be through institutional guidelines. So you see, at times, apart from the president, apart from the governors, apart from the chairman, you could have the Federal Inland Revenue Service, which is an institution, coming out and making pronouncements. You could have the central bank coming out and saying, hey, we want to increase the policy rate. You could have the Ministry of Education coming to say, we will not admit people less than 16 into universities. Those are institutional guidelines. And after you do that, you start the work. So you put the policies to use into action through programs, through regulations, and through enforcement. It's not enough to have policies. It's not enough to have identified the problems. It's not enough to set the agenda. You must now implement. And when you are implementing, in the process, that's where we do the mistake. We always wait for policies to end before we want to assess. No, as you are implementing, you assess the policies and the impact so that where there are problems, you could quietly or quickly go back and amend. It's like somebody cooking. You don't wait to finish cooking before you test whether there is enough salt, enough pepper. What do? As you are cooking, you test for salt so that if there is need to add more salt, you test for pepper if there's a need to add more pepper. And in doing that, it helps you to go back and correct any defects. And after that, once you identify that defect, what do? You modify, you improve, or you discontinue. if you feel there is a problem beyond remedy. Remember, we're discussing public policies, and so there are types of public policies. We have broken this module into three broad ways: economic policies. Example of economic policies, everybody is aware of the Nigerian Tax Act 2025. We have social policies. Example of social policies are anything to do with education and health. Then we have sustainability policies. These are policies to guarantee or safeguard the environment, the economy, and people. Broadly, like I said, these are the three types of public policy that we will be discussing or dwelling upon in this class. I want to believe everybody here knows what an economic policy is. Anything that has to do with, should I say, finances? Should I say with money? Should I say with agriculture? Should I say with that affects your cost of living, right? Your cost of living, it is more of economic policy. Anything that has to do with how it affects your wage, your salaries, your spending, your revenue. So an economic policy is a set of actions or strategies implemented by a government or a regulatory body. Meaning it's not always that the government alone. It could be a regulatory body like the Central Bank of Nigeria, like the Security and Exchange Commission. These are policies designed to promote economic stability. So you hear in the past days, we've been saying that Nigeria's economy is not stable. We'll be talking of GDP growth. We'll be talking of inflation, unemployment. All those policies around this are what? The economic policies. The key objectives of economic policies are to promote growth, whether it is the gross domestic product or job creation, ensure stability. You don't want to go to the market every day and you are seeing the prices of goods changing. You want price to be stable so that when you earn 10 naira, you can actually go and buy something with that money today. You can go back tomorrow, you can go back next tomorrow. In a most time, even if the price goes up, it should just go up to 11 or 12 naira. You don't want to buy something 10 naira today and tomorrow that same thing is going for 20 naira, next tomorrow 30 naira. Remember, your salary does not increase like that. If you're a businessman, your profit does not increase like that. You also have the taxation and subsidies. Those are examples of economic policies. There are key components of economic policies we are going to talk about. They should be five, but if we're able to talk about two or three, we will have made progress. The first one is monetary policy. For those of you that have been following the central bank in recent years, there is what we call the monetary policy rate. Every 2 months, the central bank meets and increases the policy rate, reduces it, or keeps it constant. That is the rate that determines how much your banks charge you interest. That is the rate that determines how much you get when you put your money in the money market, in the bonds market. In short, even for the people that borrow money informally, you understand, asusu, or even in trade union, in church, at home, in your organization. That is the rate that determines. So each time the government wants to increase, let me say, they want to reduce economic activity because the economy is overheating because of inflation, they will increase the MPR. We call it monetary policy rate. So monetary policy, majorly everywhere in the world, they are managed by the central banks or what we call monetary authorities to control money supply, interest rates, and inflation. This is just what I want us to understand about monetary policy. Monetary policy are managed by the central bank to control money supply, interest rates, or inflation. Two, fiscal policy. So why the central bank is more concerned with fiscal policy, it is the government, majorly by Ministry of Finance, that is responsible for fiscal policy. And when we are discussing fiscal policy, it is just the decisions on taxation, how much you pay on tax, whether your tax goes up, stays constant, or comes down. Then government spending, mostly in terms of budget. Everybody knows that the government has a budget. Budget is just your planned expenditure versus your planned revenue. So if the government of Jigawa State expects 1 billion naira for 2025, and it plans to spend 1 billion naira in 2025, that's its budget. And we will say the government of Jigawa State runs a balanced budget. If a local government in Anambra State expects 100 million naira and it plans to spend 80 million naira, it has an excess of 20 million. We will now say that local government is running a surplus budget. If the state government in Plateau State is expecting 1.5 billion naira for 2026, but is expecting to spend 1.7 billion naira, there is a shortfall of 200 million, or rather, of 2 billion. Sorry, 200 million, 1.5 billion, 1.7 billion. We will say the Plateau State government is running a deficit budget. So that is what fiscal policy is about. Once you understand that fiscal policy has to do with taxation, has to do with budgets, has to do with how government spends their money, then you are understanding fiscal policy. Like when the government removes subsidy, that's a fiscal policy. The next one is trade policy. I will just rush over trade policy. We import goods from abroad. We export things like oil. We also place tariffs, like people that buy cars from Cotonou. You know that there are tariffs. You hear customers increase tariffs. Those are trade policies. Then we also have industrial policy. These are strategies for industrial or national economic growth. We have wage policy. I think that one, everybody here should be familiar with wage policy, because at least we talk of minimum wage. So any policy the government makes around increase in salaries or wages, because we have compensation for workers, that's minimum wage, that's wage policy. So broadly, economic policies are monetary policy managed by the central bank, fiscal policy coordinated by the Ministry of Finance, and customs, FIRS are all under the fiscal authority. We also have the trade policy, we have the industrial policy, and the wage policy. Then, this is just a case study of an economic policy in action. You have a situation where there is this rice farmer, right? So a rice farmer in Kebbi was battling with low yields and high costs, maybe due to inflation and due to the kind of seeds he uses. But the government introduced a credit scheme that gives low interest rate compared to the interest rate that the banks give. Because of that scheme, the farmer is able to invest better, maybe hire more workers, is now able to buy better rice paddy and gets fertilizer and doubles his production. You are sure that this man is going to hire more workers. This man is going to be able to take care of his family. The workers who are able to take care of their families. Now, this is what happens. He now gets an increase, a boost in his income. And remember, by doubling his rice production, if every farmer does that, that means we are boosting food security. Also, by increasing more local workers or employing more local workers, now job creation is on the table. So we have a case of increased income for the farmer, increased food security for the country, and increased employment opportunities for workers. I want to believe this is a win-win, right? For social policies. A social policy, on the other hand, is a set of government actions and frameworks designed to improve societal well-being. We also know that we have rich people, we have not so rich people, we have not so poor people. Now, any policy that hopes to reduce the gap so that one man is not able to eat food and throw away, another one cannot eat. So that one man is not able to buy 10 cars, and another one cannot even afford transport fare from home to office. Any policy that wants to reduce that gap is part of a social policy. Reduce inequalities, ensure access to essential services like education, healthcare, housing, and social security, which we know is lacking in this part of the world. We don't really have social security, but I know some countries are up there, and even in Nigeria, some organizations and states are doing well. I know the Lagos state government is doing something, some state governments have. So all those policies fall under the social policy. The aim of social policy, unlike the economic policy that is supposed to create economic stability, reduce inflation, the aim of social policy is to address economic and social disparities. We want a situation where at least even if you don't have a shoe, you can wear a slippers. We don't want where somebody has 10 pairs of shoes and somebody does not have. That means the social disparity is very wide. We want to bridge the social disparity as much as possible so that all of us have a sense of dignity, all of us have a sense of belonging. The key objectives of social policies are to enhance welfare and equity. Example, like I said, is universal health care. Then also free education or at least affordable education. It addresses inequalities, including gender and income inequalities. I think I've discussed the key components of social policies, majorly education, healthcare, poverty alleviation, social welfare. We go to imagine a girl somewhere that hawks on the streets instead of attending school. Everybody here has gone to one school or the other, be it a formal school, a skill acquisition center, a technology incubation center. But you just imagine this girl that has no one, or maybe her family even depends on that her hawking for them to eat. So while her mates are in school, this 10-year-old girl is hawking on the streets. But through conditional cash transfer by the government, and I mean conditional cash transfer, I'm not talking of the political one, the one that really gets to address the issues. This young girl is able to go to school. Because this policy enabled her to go to school, she's able to receive education. So later, she's able to maybe secure a scholarship for higher studies. You can bet me that this will not only improve the living condition of this girl, but to improve her family's economic stability. A lot of us here, our families either depend on us, or in the past, we depended on our elder ones or the breadwinners of the family, be they our parents, our siblings, even our relatives. It is because they have a means of livelihood, be it formal education or white collar job, blue collar job, even farming. So the point here is that because of this policy that is able to give conditional cash transfer to girls like Mehenda, she left hockey, went to school, and who knows, tomorrow she's able to improve her family and change the trajectory of her family and future generations. I'll go to the third one. That's sustainability policy. I don't know how many people here, I wish I can see where everybody comes from, but I don't know how many people here live in Lagos. I know there have been floods or rain. I don't know how many people here live in Jos. Oh, at least last week I saw videos of floods in Rayfield. Most times, sustainability is supposed to take care, or sustainability policies aim to balance environmental protection, social inclusion, and long-term economic viability. We as people, we do not live in isolation of our environment. There is no how, whether the birds that stay in the air or fly in the air, the fishes that swim in water, or animals and people that live on land, that's our environment. So the implication is that whatever affects the environment affects us first as people, then affects even our economic conditions. Imagine if you're a fisherman and the environment is polluted, the water is polluted, the fishes die. You can no longer earn a living from fishing. That means you cannot feed and you cannot pay your bills. If you are a farmer and there is drought, no rain falling, you will not be able to harvest your crops. You cannot eat, you cannot sell, you cannot pay your children's school fees. Many people have lost their homes because of flood, because of fire. Many people have also lost their crops because of desertification. So any policy that is intended to protect the environment, balance between the social, that's society, because when we're talking of society, we're talking about people, and economic growth in the long term. Those are sustainability policies. If you read in the news, you will see many times where government has come with policies to reduce to maybe to be able to relocate people from flood prone areas, or find people that contribute to environmental degradation. If your sewage or your vent is not well properly channeled, and you are sending bad water from your toilet into somebody else's land that might even be seeping into their well. Government has come with policies in the past or at different times to attempt to address this. So the key principles of environmental policies: environmental preservation, that's for the planet; social inclusion, the people; economic viability, the profit. We call that the triple bottom line. When you hear people, planet, and profit, we want a situation where the people can exploit the planet without destroying the planet. The people can earn their living on the land, in the waters, in the air, to make economic profit without destroying the people, like slavery, like oppression, and without destroying the planet. If you can see my laser, there is a diagram to my right. There is the social, the economic, and the environmental. Where the social and the economic meet, then there is a place where the economic and social meet, environmental and social meet, environmental economic meet. But where the three meet, for those of us that can remember our Venn diagrams from mathematics in primary school, secondary school, is sustainability. That means at this level, the society is not exploiting the environment is not preventing the people from earning an income or earning a livelihood. The economy too is not exploiting the environment, like what we do with gas flaring in Nigeria. In trying to process or exploit oil, we flare gas, which destroys the environment. If you remember, some years ago, we had what we call suits in Port Harcourt. It is because the economy is exploiting the environment. But be sure it has health challenges or implications for the people. So in this middle where the three meets, that is the best possible position. We call it the sustainable position. Concept of sustainability, or the components: renewable energy and climate policies. We want to exploit and use energy in such a way that it does not cause harm to us. For those of us that know those cars that have bad exhaust, imagine driving behind a trailer and then it's smoking. You can imagine the amount of toxic this thing we are inhaling. So imagine that for every houses that is beside us, pumping those toxic gases to the neighborhood, to the atmosphere. We also have the wage and pollution control. We have sustainable agriculture and food security. In trying to arrive at agriculture, our population is expanding. We want to grow food in such a sustainable manner that one day the land will not become barren. So there are policies that try to promote climate smart agriculture, organic farming, rotation, and the rest. Then we have the green transportation. If everybody drives a car in Lagos, imagine the population of Lagos, everybody drives a car in Lagos, millions of cars bringing out fumes. So what the Lagos state government do? They have the Lagos bus rapid transit, right? That BRT. If there are 50 people in a BRT, it just tells you that 49 cars are off the road. 49 cars have been removed from the road. Is a far big improvement instead of having 50 cars, everybody pumping smoke on the road. So these are components of social policies. I think I discussed about a fisherman. If you are in the Niger Delta or in Lagos, let's say Lagos Lagoon, or on the Atlantic, somewhere in Kebbi, Argungu, and suddenly there is water pollution, you can no longer catch fish. The truth is that it will affect you. But when they bring an environmental regulation, let me say Lagos state government now says all the polluted waters in the Lagos must be cleaned by the industries that cause those pollutions. And within 2 years, the fishing population recover. Don't you think, one, it will improve the livelihood of those people living in Lagos around those waterways? Don't you think those fishes will now give them an economic value that they can use to take care of themselves and their family? And it will also increase biodiversity. Imagine going to the to the pond, to the water side, you're able to see flowers, you're able to see fish, you're able to see crab, see snails. Those of us that love seafood, you can now get your seafood, unlike when they are all dead. So this is what an environmental policy can achieve. Now, these three policies, I want us to look at how they overlap. And I hope everybody is with me in this class. Sorry, I can't see your faces. I'll give an example of how they are overlap. Fuel subsidy removal, for instance, it has an economic impact, right? But that it can cause savings for the government. But on the social part, it increases your transport cost or our transportation costs. What does that mean? We are going to remove money from our pocket, more money from our pocket to pay for fuel or to pay for transport. That is, we are worse off economically. But for the government, it gives it more savings. So ordinarily, in a normal setup, the government should have more money to do things, more money to do programs, more money to provide good health, provide education opportunities, and even borrow less. But on the sustainability side, when more people or when it is more expensive to spend money on fuel, two things will happen. It can reduce the amount of time we spend driving cars. For every small thing you want to just drive from your house to the gate, you want to drive from your house 2 minutes, you want to drive. You could take a walk, which will make you healthier, keep you in shape. You could also ride a bicycle if where you're going to is within your neighborhood. And like electricity and band A now, you could take an upfront cost and install solar because you know that band A is expensive in the long run. So this is how those policies interact. Now, I want to set a disclaimer. The essence of this class is not to argue whether this policy is good or is bad. No, we want to see how policies are made and understand why policies are made. In understanding why and how policies are made, I bet you all of us here that are aspiring to become local government councillors, chairmen, ministers, governors, presidents, or even aides, when we get there, we will be able to make good policies that will have minimum negative effect on the people. So this class is not supposed to discuss whether this policy is good or not, harmful or not. No, maybe there are other classes. If we take, we will go into the effectiveness of those policies. But I just want us to understand how policies are made, what are policies, why they are made, how they are made, why do they succeed, and why don't they succeed. And this is what we call the overlap. But in trying to also make policies, that is what we call the trade-off. So everybody here, tomorrow is Monday morning. Tomorrow is Monday. You have an opportunity to continue sleeping way into the day, 12 noon, 11 a.m., or wake up as early as possible and go to work. You see, you must give up one for the other. But as a human being, you know that you need sleep, yet you also need to go to work. For those going to school, you need to go to school. So what do you think you should do? You must find a trade-off. The trade-off, you cannot choose school over work or work over school. No, you are human. You need to sleep well. You're also human. You need to go to school or you need to go to work. So the trade-off is that if you know you need 8 good hours of sleep and you need to wake up by 6, it's only natural that you should go to bed by 10. So whatsoever you are doing today, go to bed by 10 so that tomorrow by 6, you wake up. You see, that trade-off is that you have achieved your good 8 hours sleep. Your body is not deprived of the needed sleep, yet you will not go to work or school late. So when you are trading off, trade-off is to balance short-term needs with long-term goals. I don't know if I'm communicating. I'm saying that you have two different things that sometimes can be conflicting. The proper thing to do is to trade off. Balancing your trade-off will help you achieve both goals without significantly losing one. If I decide to sleep till 10 a.m. tomorrow and go to work, I get a query. If I decide because I am working into the night, sleep at 2 a.m. and wake up by 6 a.m., my body will not get enough sleep. So I should trade off. The short term, don't forget to trade off, you need to balance your short term needs with your long term goals. And that's why a lot of us go to school during the exam. We stay awake. When you stay awake during the exam, it is the short term issue. But your long term goal is what? You want to graduate with a good grade. When you go to learn work with a mechanic workshop, sometimes it comes with difficulties, some challenges. You have to carry heavy metals, carry engine, but it's a short-term need. You know your long-term goal. Your long-term goal is to be a co-stratus. So that's how we trade off. To trade off, I would have loved us to discuss a case study. So if a state government introduces electric bus in a congested city, you see, the cost, the upfront cost will be high. For every 5 million naira, let's say you buy a petrol vehicle, you might buy an electric bus for 10 to 15 million. But in the long run, it will reduce air pollution. It will also reduce your fuel expense and create jobs because you are going to have people that need to install the solar panels, people that will provide the electric stations. If I go back to this, look at the definition of trade-off. You balance short-term needs with long-term goals. And that is what we are saying here. While the initial cost of an electric bus for a congested city like Lagos is high, in the long run, Lagos is able to get cleaner air. Lagos State government will have also saved on fuel or diesel, and then they will have also created jobs. That's an example of a trade-off. So anytime you are doing a policy, for those of you that are going to help your principals at work, be it government job, elective or appointed, civil service, understand that every policy you are making, there are short-term implications and there are long-term goals. Please always balance the short-term need so that one does not overshadow the other. In trying to look at the long-term goals, you don't create policies that will kill the short-term needs. And in trying to protect the short-term needs, you do not lose focus of the long-term goals. You must balance the two. That's why it takes you 6 years to go to a secondary school because you have a lifetime goal of becoming a man or a woman that has opportunities in life. You will not kill yourself because you want to earn a degree, but you should please not say you want to relax and forget the fact that school is just 6 years and you could have 50 years after school to live. Always remember to balance. So public policy must address immediate concerns, as I said, while ensuring sustainable long-term practice or progress. You must strike a balance, and this can be challenging because of competing interests, political pressures, and economic constraints. So you want to build a house for every homeless Nigerian. Do you know how many people will come out that they don't have a house in Nigeria? We don't have the resources to build a house for everybody. You see, that's an economic constraint. Sometimes Party A wants to remove fuel subsidy, but the opposition in Party B is saying no. You see, that's political pressure. Sometimes within the same organization, you have a minister that wants to do A, but the civil servants in that office will say no, it will not benefit them. You see, there are competing interests. So when you are balancing this as a public policy maker, you must consider that there are challenges. This can be competing interests, political pressures, and economic constraints. How you manage this will depend on how well we are succeeding in the electoral college. Because at the end of the day, everything you are learning here with this module, the module before now, is to help you make better decisions as public policy makers as public office holders, as public servants, as elected officials, or even appointed officials. But there are key challenges, like I said, political cycles versus political continuity. I don't know how many of you here are in APC. The governments that ruled Nigeria from 2015 to 2023 was an APC government. The government that has been ruling Nigeria from 2023 May till date is an APC government. But I bet you, if you look at some of the policies, you can see the difference. You will think there were two different parties in power. That is an issue of continuity. And we know so well that we have that problem in Nigeria. So because political cycles come every 4 years, like between 2011 and 2015, we had a PDP government that only ruled for 4 years, 2011 to 2015. The government could not continue from 2015 to 2019. So it was only one political cycle, short. And because of that, a lot of the policies were not continued when the government of 2015 took over. So you see what political cycle does. I'm saying this because in trying to make your policies, in trying to develop policies, you need to consider the shortness of this political cycle. There is no point knowing that your election, if you win an election today, forget second tenure, you are only guaranteed of your first term. That election you have won for 4 years. So why will you make a policy that will take you 10 to 20 years to implement? That's why most times we have policy somersaults, we have policy reversals. If you are elected in office, please make policies or advise your principals, make policies that they can implement within the guaranteed period they're in office. Yes, if they are re-elected, they can continue with the second part, with the third part of the policy. But it doesn't make sense we are in 2015, or rather 2025, and a government that came in 2023 is now telling you that is making a policy for 2039, for 2050. You know why? They will not be there for us to hold them accountable. In short, they will not even be there to go through or see through their policies. I will advise that when we are advising public officials, when we are advising policymakers, when we are the policymakers, when we become the policymakers, please make your policies within the political cycle. If you are a permanent secretary, for instance, and you know you have 3 years to retire, there is no point making regulations in your ministry that will take 10 years to implement. I hope I've explained that. So infrastructural projects, I know those ones can generate quick jobs versus long-term education reforms that can yield future benefits. You can see just the last Minister of Education came up to say that you will need to be 18 years to go into the university. And he was removed. The first month he was removed, the person that succeeded him took the policy back to the 16 years that had always been. So you can see why I talk about the policy cycles and continuity. Please, in as much as they are not going to make short policies of 1 month, 1 year, make policies that you can see the horizon. Then two, another challenge is economic pressure. There could be unemployment, inflation, crisis. So you might not have the resources to address all this. And that is one of the issues that makes it difficult to balance short-term needs with long-term goals. Like public expectations, we know. Imagine 2012 when the government then wanted to remove subsidy. We occupied Nigeria. That was a kind of resistance. While the government was looking at long-term economic viability, the people were looking at immediate solution, right? So this is what happens in the case of public expectation and resistance. Resource control is still the same thing with the last one I talked about, economic challenges. Then there are uncertainty and risks. Future benefits are often uncertain. While short-term issues are more tangible, like climate change mitigation policies require investment today for benefits that may only become apparent decades later. So sometimes you might not see the advantage of what you are doing now. I can tell you a lot of people that have solar panels in their houses. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was very expensive, right, to install solar. But few people either looked for the money or were able to sacrifice some things to install solar. Let's even look at even government offices. They made conscious effort in their budget to install solar. But by the time they remove uh, a subsidy on diesel, or when the dollar affected importation of diesel, I can remember 2014, diesel sold for 160 naira a liter. And today we know that diesel is over 1,000. At a point, diesel got to almost 1,600. So anybody that had installed solar some 3, 5 years ago, that it was even not seen, I bet you now some people are running on zero grid. That is, they are off the grid because long time ago they took a decision even when they could not see the benefits. And that's what happens with uncertainty. So in making policies, there are some policies we make today because we don't even know how it will happen tomorrow, but we take the risks. Again, sometimes because we feel there are some uncertainties that will come. And imagine if you have a house and you build the house without a fence. Your neighborhood is safe, but you do not know whether tomorrow that same neighborhood will be safe. So you can spend money to fence your house today because of uncertainties of tomorrow. That's what happens with balancing short-term needs and long-term goals. We've discussed those challenges. So what do you think we should do? We should look at the strategies to overcome these challenges. The first one is to face our policy. Remember, I said there is no point if you have a 4 year, if you are elected into office for a 4 year term, even though we know it's renewable. But the one you have guaranteed is the 4 years. There is no point making a policy. I'm not saying the policy that the impact will last 20 years. No. I mean, there is no point making a policy that will take you 10 to 15 years to implement because you will not be there to implement it. It's like you start building a house, after getting to the lintel, you have no money to complete. That's what happens each time we start a policy and we are not there to complete it. So if you are guaranteed of 4 years, make your policy, but face it. Have it in such a way that, okay, in these first 4 years, I can implement this policy and get these results. If elected, I will now implement the second phase. You see, so that worst case scenario, you know that if you are not re-elected, you know that if for any reason your party loses power, or if the government of the day is changed, or you were an appointed official and the president, the governor, or the chairman does not reappoint you, you know that your policy will have been fully implemented before you go. And that is why a lot of times we don't have legacies. We don't have legacies because our policies were not completed while we were there. Our policies were not fully implemented while we were there to see it through. So gradually implement your long-term policies, but break them down, addressing immediate concerns. Let's say you have a road to fix. Why try to do a road that will take you 10 years? Why not start with phase one that will take you 3.5 years? So that within that time that you were in office, you finish that phase one and finish it well, including the drainage, the road furniture, and you can completely or say, yes, we have commissioned phase one of this road. Then, if elected, you go to phase two. But if for any reason you now start and you just start digging the road, you know what we do? We excavate the road from the end to the beginning or beginning to the end, and suddenly you are not returned to office. You now, even the road that people were managing before, you have destroyed it. The new one you were not able to build. You know the implication. You have denied people of the little road. Nobody will remember. Sure, if they remember you for anything, they will remember you for spoiling the little road they were managing. The second one is to do what? Is to have stakeholder engagement. Always educate the people and decision makers on the long-term benefits of this road. This will take care of some of these public expectations and resistance. When the people know the benefit of what you are going to do in the long term, they will not resist. Then legislative safeguard. Sometimes we need to get some of our policies backed by laws so that when we are no longer there, even if we are no longer there, those policies, because they are law, they can continue. And then we should also look at evidence-based policy making. We should use data to justify long-term investment and mitigate risks. If you today are a commissioner, if you today are a governor, or rather a commissioner, a councillor, an appointee, please, when you want to advise your principal on policies, bring data. Let them know that before we buy a bus in this environment, 50 people walk to work every day on their feet. That's why you need a bus, not because you want the contract to supply a bus. You see, if there is a data for that bus, that evidence base, tomorrow, I bet you, if the local government no longer has money to fuel that bus, because it was based on evidence, and you now tell these people, okay, before now, we used to give you this bus free. Now you will pay 50 naira daily so that we can be able to maintain this bus. You see, because you use an evidence-based policy making, your policy is going to subsist. But if the people needed, let me say, a public toilet, and you went and bought bus because it's a contract that you are going to make money from. I bet you the day the government can no longer maintain that bus, there will be no 50 people, there will be no commuters to pay to maintain that bus. Then, like I said, always balance the short-term needs with long-term goals. Now, even when we have these strategies well planned, there can be a disconnect between a policy or what a policy intends to achieve and what actually happens in practice. And this is what I call the policy gap. I will tell you a story. In the 80s, when we were kids, there was this story, whether it was true or it was just to scare us. There was this story our parents, or I can remember my mom telling us this story, that there was this father. Now, nobody told us where the mother was. So I want to believe he was either a widower or a single father. He had a daughter who he did not want to mix with boys or with men. So each time he was going to work, he locks the lady inside the house. And by house, I mean inside the room, because it was this room and parlor situation. Suddenly, one day, the girl got pregnant, and the father was surprised. Everybody was surprised. They called, "Who impregnated you?" This lady did not talk. "Who impregnated you?" After much pressure, she looked at them in the eye and said it was her father that impregnated her, and everybody was shocked. I bet you don't know what happened. It wasn't her father that impregnated her. The short of this story is that in those days there was no insecurity as it is now, so there were no burglaries on our windows. So when the father goes to work and locks her up, her boyfriend comes, she opens the window and he jumps in. And before the father comes back, he goes away. And that was what happened. So you see, there was the policy disconnect. You know why? The father had an objective. He did not want, let me use the word, he did not want the girl to be spoiled. Let me use that word verbatim. But at the end of the day, there was a problem with the implementation. That thing the father was running away from actually happened. You know why? Because there was a policy gap. So each time a policy gap occurs when there is a disconnect between policy objectives and actual implementation. I can remember around 1987, 88, during Ibrahim Babangida's regime, General Babangida banned the importation of wheat because he wanted us to grow our wheat. If you have lived in the north, Kaduna to Kano, wheat needs a temperature akin to the temperate region, very cold temperature to grow. So there are these people that farm tomatoes and vegetable along Zaria, Kano. That was the closest weather that could farm wheat. Because wheat was a big thing, we use them for bread, flour, confectionaries. Those farmers switched from farming tomatoes to wheat. Along the line, the same Babangida unbanned the importation of wheat. So while those guys have switched and left their tomatoes and vegetable business, the ships bringing wheat docked on our ports. You know the implication. Of course, our wheat cannot compete with the wheat coming from outside because those ones are cheaper since they have the economies of scale. It just those farmers along the Zaria Kaduna axis, they lost everything. They lost because I say the wheat cannot compete, and they also did not plant or cultivate their tomatoes. That's what happens when you have a disconnect between the policy objectives and the implementation. So please, anytime you are making policies or you are doing consultancy for people doing policies in the National Assembly, in the State House of Assembly, in your respective organizations, make sure you close that gap. And what are the causes of those policy gaps? Straight up, inadequate resources. You don't have enough resources, be it material or human. Poor coordination among stakeholders. So you have a set of stakeholders. Let's look at the transport sector. You have the ministry, you have the union, you have the drivers. When there is poor coordination among these stakeholders, you are going to have a policy gap. You wake up one day and the government tells you that they've banned Okada or they've banned buses from entering inside Abuja central area, but there was no mass transit. How do you think the people will do? So these are things that make policies to fail. Sometimes too, lack of political will. You remember when the president said he removed subsidy? Years before now, many governments have tried to remove subsidy. You know, that's an example of lack of political will. Maybe because of the resistance and pressure. Then we have a weak monitoring and evaluation system. So you want to build a road from Kainji to, let me say, Meduguri. And you start, let's even look at the Kaduna Kano Express Road. That road has been on for like the past 7, 8 years. What is happening? You don't have enough adequate monitoring and evaluation system. Sometimes the contractors will divert resources. Sometimes they are slow. Sometimes the quality of work they do is poor because nobody is monitoring them. So a policy gap actually occurs when there is a disconnect between policy objectives and actual implementation. Just look at if you are building, imagine what happens when the blocks do not actually lock in properly. Or if you are a plumber, imagine what happens when the tap, the pipe do not connect. You are trying to move water from point A to B and you need 10 long pipes. If at the point one of those taps or the two taps where you're supposed to join them do not join well, be sure water is going to be leaking, right? Be sure that the water will pour. It will not get to its destination. That's what happens in the case of policy gap. And what are the implications? Straight up, reduce policy effectiveness, failure to achieve intended outcomes. So if you wanted to reduce poverty, you will not be able to. If you wanted to give people adequate education, you will not be able to. If you wanted to give people access to affordable or free health, you will not be able to. So how do we close the gap? You can do that by strengthening institutions. A lot of times, remember, we are talking of public policy. So you can do that by strengthening institutions. When you are talking public policy, you need institutions. Let's bury that thought that we think one man can do it. In the case of public or governance, it is not a macho issue. You need institutions. See, men will come and go, women will come and go, people will come and go. In the past 20 years, how many presidents have we had? In the past 20 years, how many governors has each state had? But the institutions that they put, whether it is the legislature, whether it is the civil service, be it schools, hospitals, those are the ones that will remain. So please, I want all of us here that are policymakers, will be policymakers, aides to policymakers, principals, and everybody strengthen the institution. Don't carry that strong man mentality. That is what has kept us where we are because we feel only one man cannot save this world. One man cannot save this country. We need institutions to work. So when we have strong institutions with good men, strong institutions with good women, then we can make progress. Remember, I discussed part of the problems is stakeholders disconnect. Please try and enhance stakeholder engagement. Carry the stakeholders along. Improve transparency and accountability. At every point, let people see what you are doing. Let them know that you are committing the amount and quality of resources that is supposed to be committed into each level of policy making process. Then there are tools to evaluate policy effectiveness or policies. One, relevance. Is that policy relevant? Does it address a specific problem? Or do I just want to make policy because I'm the head of state? Because I want to feel good as the governor? Because I'm the local government chairman? So I want to prove to my opponent, please, in evaluating this thing, look at the relevance. Does the policy address the problem? Then what is the impact? If it addresses a specific problem, what are the short-term and long-term effects? We need to put that in order so that we can do that trade-off I talked about earlier. Then let's look at the feasibility. Can it be implemented effectively? Sometimes it might have relevance. Sometimes it might have the impact, but some things are not possible. Let's look at Ajakuta Steel. That stuff has been there for over 40 years. Billions of dollars have been committed. But I don't think anybody looked at the feasibility of Ajakuta Steel rolling mill that time or company. Else, we will not be talking of Ajakuta almost 50 years after. Then inclusiveness. Who benefits or who is left out? There's always a cry of marginalization. When you are doing a project, when you are putting in a policy, are a certain set of people neglected? Does it favor only one? Please, let's try as much as possible for policies to benefit more people, for it to include the different, so we have different people, whether based on gender, based on religion, based on age grade, even based on ability. There is no point you are busy building hospitals and schools, and all you are building is upstairs and staircase. What happens to the man on the wheelchair? Nobody is talking of a ramp, right? You are building toilets, and nobody is thinking of where the females can use for their own self. You are only thinking, okay, it's only boys that come to play ball here. No, inclusiveness, who benefits and who is left. You see, if more people are excluded, that project will not get the buy-in, that project will not get support. Then sustainability, does it safeguard future generations? Let's look at our oil. We want to spend all the oil money. We want to borrow money against the oil we have not yet exploited for the next 10 years. So if we drill oil today and we export and make money, we now borrow money against next year's oil we have not yet drilled. Borrow against the 5 years oil. Borrow against 10 years oil. Our children in the next 10 years, so what are they going to use? Because even the oil that they will come to drill in the next 10 to 15, 20 years is already mortgaged by the loans we took 5 or 10 years ago. So please, let's also consider sustainability when we are evaluating policies. It must be relevant, it should have impact, it should be visible, it must include everybody or as many people as possible, and please, it should protect future generations. Why do policies matter? Policies matters because they shape local and national development and governance. As I've been calling local government chairmen, councillors, ward. Policies shape even your local happiness. That little market you have that somebody is collecting revenue, that primary healthcare center that has been abandoned, that school that nobody is thinking of the roof that the rain has removed. Those are local issues. And then at the national level, employment, cost of living, inflation, interest rates, taxation, and even the governance. One man driving 50 cars, one man driving 100 cars on public money. That is why your policies matter. They shape local, national development and governance. And then they influence economic growth. So, how well we initiate, implement, evaluate, monitor policies determine the level of economic growth. The countries that have grown, all those developed countries that have grown to where they are today, it was policies that caused their economic growth. And truly, all the countries that are having economic challenges as we speak, it was policies or bad policies or poor policies or lack of proper, effective implementation that brought them to where they are. Same thing for societal well-being, including security. Then it reflects the priorities of government and stakeholders. So these are the reasons or some of the reasons why policy matters. And that is why it's very important for all of us to take interest in what a policy is, in what public policy is, in how public policy is discussed, and how it is implemented, because it has effect on us, or we can actually influence the outcome for good and unfortunately also for bad. I pray we all do that for good. How do you engage in policy discussions? You have to research and understand, know the policy background and its objective. Most times, people don't know anything about policy. There is a policy going on now to save seats for women in the National and State House of Assembly. If I was going to take a poll, I don't know how many of us are aware of that policy. Before now, there are a lot of hearings that led to the amendment of the tax laws that we now have the Nigerian Tax 2025 Act. A lot of times we are not aware, we don't feel concerned until these policies come to the center, and then we see the implications and we start crying that, oh, this policy is detrimental. So please understand policies, research, know the background. Then what do? When you get this research, leverage on the data and the evidence. When you are a policymaker, be you a legislator or an aide to a legislator or an aide to a chairman, to a councillor, to a governor, always use statistics to support your position. If your governor wants to increase salary, you should be able to position to tell him that, okay, we have 50,000 workers in our payroll. Out of this 50,000, we also earn 5 billion naira monthly from federation accounts. This is how much we spend on capital expenditure. This is how much we spend on paying debts. This is how much is left. So we can increase salary by so amount. I bet you if you use these statistics and data to support your position, you will make progress. You should be able to succeed in engaging policymakers. And the same thing goes for those of us that will be involved in activism. You know, we have NGOs, we have we have civil societies. Whether you are supporting or opposing a policy, please research well and also use data to support your position. Engage through platforms. There are town hall meetings. The past month, I knew the National Assembly was going to zones to engage people in the case of this constitutional amendment. Even though this constitutional amendment has become, for me, like just a constant thing every year or every cycle. But my point is that town hall meetings are held, public hearings are held, advocacy groups, please get involved. Then the next thing, identify stakeholders. There are policymakers, there are civil society, private sector, and the public. Please, each of these stakeholders, they are different. Each of these stakeholders, your approach to them is different, and your approach to them must speak to their needs, must speak to their type. You do not speak to policymakers the way you speak to civil society. You do not explain to the private sector the way you explain to the public. Understand the niche, understand the gap, understand what the policy will do for each of these. And when you have done this, communicate clearly. Be clear, be concise. Before 2012, 2013, there was nothing like budget. Budget in Nigeria was very complex. But you saw what budget did. They were able to come, simplify budget, they disseminate numbers. You don't need to know the scientific or the complexities of a budget. They just brought in infographics that an average person that can read and write will understand. Be clear, be concise. And I can bet you budget has been very successful in any engagement that has to do with budget as a public policy in Nigeria. There are strategies to influence policy, which is what we've talked about. You advocate, you lobby. You also have stakeholder mobilization. You can engage through media. You can have participation in public consultation. You engage the legislators and executives. It's not everything that is fight. Sometimes you have to take it like a bit cool, try to engage them on an intellectual level, try to engage them, let them see from their own perspective or where they are seated, let them understand why you are bringing the position you are bringing. You need to engage well. You need to also mobilize stakeholders. There are times you actually need all the NGOs behind you. You need all the students behind you. You need the community leaders behind you. There are times you need the village behind you. So you should understand there are different strategies to influence public policy. Then what are the challenges in Nigeria? Limited access to information. A lot of times, policies are made in government offices, in government cycles, or just at the top, and we don't know. I was reading an interview or part of the experts of Femi Odetola's book, and he was talking of how Obasanjo was agreeing with him when he deregulated diesel, and they called him that there was no diesel. Obasanjo told him, let me quote him. He said, "You're a stupid boy. You told me that there will be diesel when we deregulate." Meanwhile, so why I'm saying this thing is that it means a few people sat down and decided to deregulate diesel. It wasn't in the public domain, or the public did not have a say. There are also bureaucratic bottlenecks. These things happen mainly in the civil service. These are the challenges we have. You want, like now, let's say the electoral college or this cohort was supposed to go and engage the Minister of Information or Minister of Education on a public policy that has to do with education. You now go, you book an appointment, they tell you the minister is not around. You come back next tomorrow, they tell you the minister is in a meeting. You come back again, they give you a time. When you come, they will tell you the minister just left. You come tomorrow, you see the minister in the office through the glass, but they'll tell you the minister is busy. That's what happens in this case. Of course, there are also influence of special interest groups. Sometimes some people hijack policy making for their own interest, be it political, be it economic, be it sectional. Then when we have weak institutional frameworks, imagine where the police needs to take permission from a high level authority before they do their work. Or imagine where you have a case where somebody is corrupt and we all know the law, but somebody has to signal somebody before they do their work. That's what happens there with weak institutions. Then there is also public apathy and distrust. Most times we don't trust the government because of past experience. So when and the government too do not trust us or trust whether the civil service or the advocates. When you now want to engage, they look at you as if you're a troublemaker. So these are part of the challenges in public policy engagement in Nigeria. So you need to find ways to go around this. You need to have your ear to the ground to break this issue of limited information. You also need to find a way. Maybe you apply on time, you follow through, and you let the people know the benefit of why you want to see the governor, the minister to address these policy issues. Just last week, the military or retired military people were barricading the Ministry of Finance. And you let them know that, okay, this policy we are trying to make, whether you are in power or when you leave service, there is the implication for you. So when we make this country better, it is because when you become senior citizens, you also benefit. So you need to just find a way of getting along these challenges. For the opportunities, there are many. You can leverage technology and digital platforms. What EC and Electoral College is doing now, everybody is joining this online. I bet you if it was a physical class, we might not be able to get everybody from all over the country, right? Sometimes the cost of even participation, when you come, how are you going to pay your transport? How are you going to get a hotel to spend the night? But because of technology now, you see, you can leverage technology. You can engage with international organizations and donors so that they can underwrite some of these costs. You build partnership with the academia, that's the universities, polytechnics, and research institutions. Because most times, these people also write policy papers. They write what you call research policies. And when you have a partnership with them, you can be able to influence the recommendations they make to those in power or those in government. You use grassroots movements for collective action. That's where the market women come in. That's where the youth club, even sport associations. These are ways you can do. I bet you in a local government, if you have the buy-in of the market women, if you have the buy-in of the farmers association, if you have the buy-in of the youth, it will now be easier for you to let the chairman know that these people are behind you as far as this policy is concerned. You see, these are examples and ways you can influence policies. The rules for citizen policy, all of us here have a role. Stay informed, keep track of policy changes and their implications. So they want to change the tax law. Keep track. Know the one that is good, know the one that is harmful, know the one that you need to speak about, know the one that you need to speak against. Be also active. When they tell you come participate in elections, please do. Register when you are supposed to register. Get your cards when you are, because you speak through your voice. Your voice is your vote. Also, when they call for public debate, public hearing, please go and make your thoughts and the thought of your constituency, the thought of your class, the thought of your group, your village, your farmers union, everybody, make them known. Participate in public policy forums, then hold leaders accountable. Demand transparency and effectiveness in policy implementation. So somebody says he's going to build a school and it's going to cost 1 million naira to build that school. If that is in our community, we can ask this person, okay, can you show us the bill of quantity? Can you tell us the timelines this project will be completed, so that in the next 9 months we know that this school will be completed? We will monitor the project from the foundation to the DPC to the lintel to the roofing to the furnishing and the finishing. That is how we can hold our leaders accountable. What are the practical steps? Attend workshops. And this is strictly, I'm talking for those of us in this class that have ambitions of influencing policy, that want to engage in public policy making, that actually work for those involved in policy, either at government level, at non-governmental level, and even intergovernmental level. Attend workshops and seminars on policy, like what you are doing. Join relevant advocacy group. There are civil societies, we have the plaques, we even have them even at our different level. Is it at the village level, ward level, community level, local government level, state level, National Council of Women Societies, you have the Nigerian Youth Movement, we have various youth states, even your political parties. You join relevant advocacy groups. Create a personal policy engagement plan. So you could be busy, but you can say once a month, I will tune into the radio and contribute to a policy discussion. Once a year, I will physically attend a policy forum. Once a quarter, I will join online. Once in 6 months, I will write a newspaper opinion and send to a newspaper to publish. Thank God today we have many media houses. So you could create a personal engagement plan. Then you should monitor and evaluate ongoing policies in your community. It's not enough to leave it to those in office. It's not enough to leave it to the politicians. It's not enough to leave it to those government people alone. You should monitor and evaluate. You could do it virtually, you could do it physically. So when they call for town hall meetings, when they call for association meeting, when they call for even local government engagement, you attend, you monitor, ask questions, and tell them your mind also. To wrap up this class, the key takeaways I want us to go, if you don't go with anything, is this: policy impacts all aspects of daily life. Somebody's decision as a policymaker will affect your economic well-being. How you get well, as in economically richer, poorer, stagnant, how much leaves your pocket in forms of tax, how much leaves your pocket in form of what you buy, how much comes to your pocket in forms of your wage or salary. It also affects your social well-being, be it security, education, health, sanitation, your environment too. Whether the road to your house has a drainage. I think last year, somewhere in Abuja, a car swept during the rain. It swept a director or a deputy director and his driver. So those environmental policies that protect your land, that reduces the amount of pollution in the air, water pollution, air pollution, gas flaring, oil spillage, it will affect you either health-wise, economic-wise, or your means of livelihood. When you simplify policies, they make them relatable and actionable for everyone. There is no point bringing policies that are complex, or when you are trying to explain policies to people, you yourself, you cannot even relate to them. How do you expect the people to relate? But when they are simple enough, they are actionable, they are trackable, they can be actually evaluated. We can say, yes, you succeeded or not. You can say, yes, the government succeeded or not. You can say the chairman did well, the governor did well, the president did well, or the chairman did not do well, or he did well, but he can do better. The governor did well, but he can still improve. So my call to action is that each of us should track policies. Each of us should engage in active policy discussions, and things like this that the electoral college is doing is one key and easy and even cheap avenue. I believe we have gained a lot from the past, all the modules we've held in the past weeks on electoral college. They've tried to talk to us on different aspects. Everything you've discussed, be it election, be it monitoring, be it journalism, be it communication, those things are either policies, or they influence policies, or they feed into policies. This is my own way of telling all of you, thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for giving me your ears. And I thank the Electoral College for the opportunity to yet again have a discussion on simplifying policies for all the participants. Thank you so much.
Charlie, are you there?
Yes, I'm done. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, sir. That was really insightful. I believe we have some questions. Ernest, I've asked you to unmute. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you for your very educative class. My question is, you spoke about the need to make policies that will benefit everyone. So I would like to ask, would you say the fuel subsidy removal has benefited the common man, as well as the Nigerian Insurance Industry Reform Act reform, that was recently assented by the president, impacting the economy in terms of localization? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, so will you throw more light on it?
Okay. Do I answer one by one?
Anyhow, sir.
Okay. So if you remember, I don't know at which point you joined, but I tried to say that the essence of this class was not to say whether a particular policy is good or bad, because we were not actually x-raying policy effectiveness. But what I said is that it should be beneficial to as much as possible. Now, whether it is beneficial or not to many people will now determine the way you score that policy. So this class will not really, I will not answer if the subsidy removal is beneficial to everyone. Because you know what, there are over 200 million people. And for me to come with that, I am an economist, so I have my own position. But for the purpose of this class, for me to answer your question, I would have had to take a survey, right? And because if I sit down in my own room and tell you it benefits everybody, I will not be speaking for everybody. And if I tell you it is not beneficial to everybody, I will also not be speaking to everybody for everybody. But the only thing I can tell you is that any policy that benefits everybody, you will see it in the rating of the policy. So if today we were supposed to take a poll, the Nigerians will speak and you will see the numbers, whether it is beneficial to everybody. But like I said, the disclaimer I made was that this class was not meant to actually x-ray whether this policy is good or that policy is bad. For the insurance act policy, is the same thing. If we had followed through the process, even for the fuel removal, there was a problem. So maybe there was a problem identification. They sat down and said, okay, let's brainstorm, let's identify the problem, let's formulate. So it is not the removal. This class is not talking about how good or bad the policy is, but how well the process of making that policy. That was what we were trying to discuss in this class. And like I said, so that if the fuel removal subsidy was not good enough for everybody or for much of the people, when you and I have the opportunity to make policies, we will follow through some of these things we've discussed today. Thereby, we will make better policies. For the insurance policy too, the same thing. I bet you for those people that will benefit either from the insurance agents, the companies, they will tell you these are the good sides. How about the individuals that we need to pay? They will tell you, because I'm going to pay more for my insurance, either for my building, for my car, for this. The average person will tell you that no, this policy is not good for me. But the issue is that if they had followed through, did they engage stakeholders? Did they include people? Did they look at this policy? Did they think it's thoughtful at this material point in time? If they answer those questions and they tick the right boxes, I bet you when they make and formulate that policy and they implement it accordingly, it will have been a good policy. So please pardon me, this class is not supposed to tell you whether this policy is good or bad. This class is supposed to tell you simplify policies so that you will know the implication of policies your principals make, the implication of policies you are going to make when you get there, the implication of policies you are going to contribute to. And right now, if you feel they are not good enough, when you start your advocacy, you can say, no, do it this way so that we don't harm people. Do it this way so that it can benefit more people. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you answered. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Maka, are you back?
Yeah, Paul, please unmute and ask your question.
Okay.
Okay, Paul is not responding, so I think I will have to ask Patrick. Patrick, sorry.
Hello?
Okay, Paul.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good
Hello?
evening, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, so I appreciate the very insightful, educative lectures. My challenge is the public policy on power. So I've observed over time that right from the military down to the return of democracy or civil war, the power sector, I'm talking electricity and renewable energy, lately, has suffered a lot of implementation. And I see that sector as having, if it's unlocked, it has a lot of potentials for even economic, social, environmental, and even growth and sustainability. But over time, policymakers around the government has been unable to implement policies to the latter that, is embedded in corruption. We have cases of like the Mambila, all those things, right from the Obasanjo come to this level, even during the military regime of Abacha. So much has been invested in the power sector, but we are not seeing much in terms of the implementation that will unlock the potentials for growth. So I don't know if there's any way that the stakeholders can engage and change the narrative. That is my concern, sir. Thank you.
So the power sector in Nigeria is a very good example of how those policies, those three policies we spoke about connect: the economic, the social, and the sustainable policies. You have stated that power, if we had viable power, we will have developed, it will have unlocked. So there is a little town in the UK, is it Glasgow? It generates more electricity than the whole of Nigeria. There are some places in the US that the electricity that goes to just one factory is more than the whole electricity in Nigeria. So I think we've really failed. Our policymakers in the power have failed because, like I said, they've not looked at the interconnectedness. So sometimes they make the policy strictly as an industrial policy. Sometimes they make it strictly as an economic policy. I can tell you for Band A, this Band A policy that they did, they looked at the fact that the government was owing, because electricity is being subsidized. They looked at the fact that the government was owing the power generators so much money, and it was becoming difficult. So they were cash strapped. There was a bit of illiquidity. So for me, Band A was strictly an economic policy. Nobody looked at it from the social side, because you see some very poor neighborhoods that have no business. The electric distribution companies will manage to give them 24 hours light for some days. And after that, migrate them to Band A, charge them high, and then they start suffering from power outages. Nobody looked at the social implication. You are buying electricity in a week more than, because how much is the minimum wage? More than in a month, some people you will spend your more than your minimum wage, the country's minimum wage, just to buy electricity. So nobody looked at it from the social side. Then the sustainability side too. The more people are unable to get power, the more people will buy generator and diesel and fire their plants. So, like I said, our electricity is one of the key things that we fail to look at the interconnectedness. Talking about what has been happening in that sector, if you remember where we discussed, we talked of some of the challenges, and I know we talked of interest. So it is another clear case that people's interests have been elevated more than the public interest in the case of our power over the past years. We also looked at economic constraints. Sometimes, because the government too did not have the necessary money or the funds to do these things. That's why sometimes they resort to this back and forth. But like we said, corruption has been endemic in that sector, and that takes me back to the interest. So I agree with you totally. If they have to really look at it, we will need to address, for me, let me tell you, the easiest way. There are some things we need to do. We look at the picture holistically, then engage stakeholders. Stakeholders there will include the consumers, include the providers of generating companies, the transmission and the distribution, of course, the policymakers, and who knows, even our own academia, because we should have researchers, right? We have people in the academia that should be able to bring out policy recommendations. So the key thing to our policy, the key thing is our energy mix. I think we will need to look at the energy mix. Once we look at our energy mix, what percentage of our energy should come from fossil fuel? What percentage should come from renewable energy? What percentage should we even import or export? That will have been addressing our energy crisis. But we cannot do that if we don't tame corruption, if we don't tame the interest, individual and group interest that has held that sector down. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you, Sammy. I'm going to Patrick, please.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Arthur, thank you very much for the presentation. But while the presentation was going on, there's this little issue I just wanted to see if I can get a little clarification on. Because you did talk about, people getting into office and then initiating and, if possible, implementing policies that will, be within their period in office. So there's this popular saying, they always say that government is a continuum, So I was just trying to see that what about in the case of, or in the event of a situation where a person is coming up with a policy that will outlive the person's administration, and such a policy is a good one, are we saying that such a person shouldn't come up with such, And then I would also want to get your take on this issue of personalities and parties, because I feel that once the policy is good, such a policy should be sustained regardless of the party or the person or the personality in office. So these are all the issues I just want to see if you can, can make me clear on them, sir.
Okay, so when I was talking about that policy cycle, it was because we were addressing a challenge, right?
Yes, sir.
So ordinarily, if that was not a challenge, and it says short-term electoral cycles often drive politicians to prioritize policies with immediate impact over long-term strategies. So I think this place here is twofold. Sometimes because of the short cycles, they don't look at the long goal, they don't look at the long term. They just do the one that is immediate, and I understand with them. But remember when I was talking about the solution, I talked about something like facing the policies. So it is actually because we have this problem of policy continuity. That's why we are having this discussion. If we didn't have this as a problem, we will not be discussing that. I will give an instance. In 2019, I was in the UK. We were actually on a scholarship, and we had a meeting of African scholars in the Foreign Affairs Ministry. That was when there was an election that Boris Johnson was running for, the Conservative and Labour. And there were already some policies on Africa. But you know what they told us when we engaged? They told us that whichever party wins the election, the policy towards Africa will remain largely the same. And so you see, that's a society that has institutions, because the politicians are not the ones driving the policy as much as the institution, as much as the career civil servants. We are having some of these problems here because in this part of the world, it is we, or it is the politicians that are driving these policies. Some policies are not meant for politicians. Even if they make the policies, the implementation are not meant for them. But I bet you, if you are aware now, most governors, most presidents, they have special advisors, they have special assistants, they have senior special assistants. Those are the people that run or implement those policies. Ordinarily, when people come to power and they make policies, it is the civil service that should implement the policies, because an average civil servant has at least 30 to 35 years in service. But the highest the politician has is 8 years. But where you have the politicians, special advisors, senior special assistants, and special assistants implementing and running the policies, you are going to have this challenge. So why we are not saying that policies should not be made beyond this cycle, say, please understand them and consider, face them. And that's why I said face them, so that you're able to complete the one that you have a guarantee. There is no point making policies. I started and I made an illustration. I asked for those that know when Buhari was in power and now that Tinubu is in power. These are two presidents under APC. But you know that a lot of the policies that were done in the previous government were stopped in this government. So you should even expect that APC should have had more of and I don't want to use the word ideology, but if APC had a manifesto and they stuck to the manifesto and all the policies they implemented was around the manifesto, no new APC government will come and radically change. It is because it answers your second question. Most times, the party is not supreme. Most times, individuals, personalities are bigger. And that's why I say we should resist that urge of having strong men, macho men, stronger than our institutions. If a political party was stronger than the president, and the president come and go, they implement the party's manifesto, you will not be having radical shift. Yes, I know that you don't expect President A to implement the same thing President B implemented, but if it is within what the party has put as his manifesto, it will not be radical different. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, perfectly well, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next person here, Joseph, please unmute and ask your questions. And please make your questions brief, please.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. All right. Thank you very much for this insightful lecture, sir. So my question is just on a concept. I think I read somewhere that there's this concept called the forced paradigm shift, which is typically talking about the fact that if policy works in a developed country does not equate to the fact that it is going to work in another country, especially third world or developing countries. So, for example, we've seen a situation whereby some institutions, like the United Nations agency, like IMF, has really advised African governments to take up a model, and then upon implementing them, it's a total failure. And a good example of that is the advice of IMF on structural adjustment program of Babangida, which also led to loss of job, high inflation, and economic hardship in the country as at that time. And there are numerous examples in that regard. So, what do you think can be done in that regard? Because people will still have this trust and authentic, belief in agencies, especially when they are coming from developed countries of the world, when they are trying to really implement the same model in Africa, ignoring our cultural differences and every other thing that is pertainable as far as the country is concerned. So what do you say to that, sir?
Are you done? Joseph? Hello, Joseph? Can you hear me? Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It seems his network.
Yes, but
Sabo, did you get his question?
yes, I did. So, when I was in the university, it was in my 200 level. I went to the University of Jos, sometimes in 98 or 99. Our HOD, his name, Professor Akko, he told us of how World Bank officials came to advise. And so when they came for an engagement. And some of the white men that came to advise Nigeria on economic policies, they had a degree in guidance and counseling. And our HOD was very mad. This is a professor of economics. And you call them to a meeting with white men from World Bank who have degrees in guidance and counseling. So why am I giving you this story? I agree with you. Most times, it seems everything coming from abroad or outside is superior. But that is why we're having this class. I don't know, Lisa or Chiamaka, how many are we in this cohort? You have an idea?
We are 800 plus. Yeah,
Fine.
800.
So if we have 800 people in one cohort, and let's say in a year, even if we have 3 cohorts, that's about 2,400. So imagine us churning out 2,400 people from the Electoral College that knows that the political destiny of Nigeria lies in our own hands, that know that they have the right to make policies, to influence policies, to shape policy and policy development, to engage in policy. I don't think anybody will come from abroad to come and tell us what to do. Truly, every environment is unique to itself. There are policies that you can implement in country A that will not work in country B. The demographics are different, the ecology is different, the economic wherewithal of people are different, even the culture of the people is different. So, and that is what we need to do, what we need to know. We need, like I said, a lot of us there are going to become political players. We are going to become active in social affairs of the country. We will hold positions, be they elected or appointed. We need to change our mindset. Most times we are the ones that actually do not regard our local talents. I bet you today, if you are a chairman in this call, if you are a governor or a minister, the moment they appoint you minister, you will want to hire an expert or somebody from abroad, a consultant from abroad. And what do you think? The person will want to just earn his money in dollars. Meanwhile, we have people that have gone through a lot of training in Nigeria, people that are doing so well. So we need to actually believe in ourselves. Then we need to believe that we can change the fortune of this country. Have I answered your question?
So we have a couple of more questions.
Okay.
Okay. I just asked somebody to unmute. Please unmute. Abiodun, please unmute. Okay. Abiodun. Okay, if you're not available, let me ask Demi.
Hello.
I
Hello.
can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Good evening. My question is about the less privileged in the society. When we are initiating our policy, how can it be inclusive, localized, and intersectionality in our? How can we be all these three in our policy making?
You want it, what did you say? Localized?
That the policy should, when initiating it, should be inclusive, localized, and intersectionality. How can we make our policy to be like that? Why I'm saying this is that, let's say, for example, you want to do a ramp to enter a place. We are not even looking at the toilet, the other section of the building. We just do the ramp to the entrance. We just leave it like that in our policy making.
So my job here is very simple. My job here is to let you know that you need to do it. So somebody that does not know policy is supposed to be inclusive, policy is supposed to be localized, a policy is supposed to be intersectional. If he makes a policy or contributes to policy development, that policy will be different from you that have attended this class. You get my point. My work was to bring out to you that while making a policy, you need to consider all those diversity issues. But I will tell you, it's simple. Always consider everyone. You might not be able to carry everyone in the policy, but if you are making a policy, like I use example of a school, consider the fact that some people could come on wheelchair. Consider the fact that some girls have attended poverty. Consider the fact too that the person on wheelchair cannot go to the second or third floor. Then be intentional about it. And when you are building toilet, or when you have should I say dining, also consider the fact that some people might need to be helped to access the dining table because of their level of physical ability or otherwise. So, like I said, yeah, this class cannot cover everything. What we were supposed to do here was just to simplify these policies and bring them out for you. Now, I want to believe you, Biodun, if today you go back to your work and you are given the assignment of writing a policy proposal, you will definitely, if you are building a hospital or a school or even a what they call it, this multi-purpose hall in a community, please build toilets that the physically challenged people can access. But like I said earlier, what do? Engage people, stakeholder engagement. When you come and you are building for a community and you just go to the chairman's house or to the governor's house and you sit down and you decide on what to build, you can never carry everybody along. But when you go to the field, you engage these people. Sure, even by meeting the people, you will see people that have different needs. Stakeholder engagement is one of the ways you can address your problem. This thing you said, like I say, consultation. Then allow people to contribute. Policy is not always that it comes from the top. In short, most effective policies come from the bottom. Ask the people, what do you want? There is this thing in Kenya, a development organization went and built houses for the cattle. And you know what? When they came, they saw the cattle outside and the people living. You can't come to people that are living in shacks people living in thatch and mud houses that are falling. Then you are building standard building for cattle because you think your organization is intervening in livestock. They saw the people outside, the people in the cattle houses, and the cattle were outside. So engage the people, ask them. It doesn't harm us to ask the people, we want your inputs. It doesn't mean you are going to use their input 100%, but it gives you an idea what the people need. It gives you an idea what the local people need. So I don't know this if I've answered your question, but like I said, my work was to steer you to ask this question you asked me. My work here is to make you consider it when you are making policy, when you are influencing policy, when you are appraising a policy. So if tomorrow you are not even a policy maker, but you are an advocate or an activist, when you go to a place, those are the questions should be using to benchmark and evaluate a policy. Is it inclusive? Does it benefit more people? Is it intentional? Does it have local needs? There is no point you go to a place that they need a market and you build them toilets, or you go to where they need a toilet and you build them a football field. Look for the local needs of the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, will you be able to take any more questions?
Yeah, I can. I will.
Okay. Deyemi. Okay, I think he has gone.
Okay.
Any other person? There's a number here. Can you unmute, please?
Good afternoon. Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for the incisive class today. We really enjoy it. I have a question that is boiling my mind to ask.
Okay, sir.
I'll be making 2 case studies. The first one, I'll be using my state as an example in those states.
Okay.
To be precise. There was a particular governor that was in power then. He was in PDP. That was Governor Mimiko. There was some works he did when he was in office. Creation of Mother and Child, a very big hospital, and a lot of works like that. And when he left office, due to the fact that there was a change in the circle, political circle, APC came in, and I didn't know, due to the, I don't want to use the word hatred. Most of all the activities he did were neglected, and it was a very, very sad scenario again in those states. So at a point, they freed an hospital that was meant to be a free health sector was now becoming expensive and tiring to the masses. That's a case study number 1. Secondly, I remember then when President Jonathan was in system, before I think some months before the election, before leaving his office, he employed some federal civil servants then. And why he left office due to the election system, he couldn't return to the office the second time. President Buhari take over. The old staffs that was recruited by Jonathan were dropped down. Most of the recruitment from that President Jonathan did, Buhari withdrew their approval for the recruitment. And due to the fact that there was a change in the circle, I want to ask,
Adeyemi, can you go straight to your question? Adeyemi, sorry, can you go straight to your question, please?
That is the question I want to ask. My question is this: in making policy, is there possible for an establishment of law for making policy can there be a policy that can establish a law in establishing some policy that even if there are change in political circle, it will be very difficult for anybody. It will be very difficult for anybody to stop some certain things or effect some certain activities that will make a productive continuity in their service. That's the question, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I will go straight to answer you. Yes, we can. But the question is whether we want to. The question is whether we will. During the course of my presentation, I talked about ring fencing. So you can ring fence policies. And that's why I say make them acts of law, get legislative buy-in. I actually dwelled on that. But you see, even when you do that, because of the way we run our government, I kept talking about we have strong men instead of strong institutions. When you have a rubber stamp legislature, I bet you it will be easier for the next person to come and reverse some of these laws. In the proper way, if these things have the backings of the law, they have legislative backings, they become law, they become enshrined. That will have ring-fenced that policy so that somebody does not just come and change it at will. But for a country that is easy to remove the Speaker of the House of Assembly for not doing the governor's bidding, for a country that is easy to influence the National Assembly, I bet you it will be easy for them to change that. So yes, we can. The question is whether we will or whether we have the power to resist. And that is where I still throw it back to you all. The essence of this cohort or this electoral college, I believe, if people come across from different parties, we should be able to understand that common interest is one. I just gave you an instance of where they told us whether it is the conservatives or the Labour or the conservatives that win power, the policy towards Africa will largely remain the same. It is left for us, when I mean us, we that want to take over from the current set of leaders, be it in electoral offices or appointive offices, to know that the common good supersedes all. That is the only reason, that's the only thing that will make me from PDP when I win, not to reverse a good policy because somebody in APC made it. That's the only reason why me from APC will not reverse a good policy when somebody from PDP makes it. I give an example of the previous education minister and the current education minister. At times too, it is also not good to make policies as individuals. That is the reason why your successor will come and reverse your policy. But if there was a general buy-in, if everybody was taking, if it's institutional, imagine it is the same party that has been in power from 2023 till date, and then two ministers of education. If that was the policy of the party, I bet you a new minister will not come and change it. I also gave you an instance of course, that was during military rule, so we cannot actually say it because that one was not a party issue. But I give you an instance of where a president banned the importation of a commodity and also unbanned it. So yes, we have the issue of policy inconsistency. We call it policy somersault. But one of the ways of ring-fencing is, as you said, we can make them laws. But the truth is that not every policy can be made a law. So much of it is we get the buy-in of the people. But beyond that, we need that behavioral change. We should not see the policy by somebody else because we come from different parties that person's policy must go down. When we do that, we are actually taking ourselves backward. Imagine this example you gave of Ondo. If only the next government came and built upon what the previous governor did, another government comes and build upon what that government built, you see, we'll be making progress. We should not be taking ourselves back. And that's the challenge for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have one or two more people here.
Okay.
Please unmute.
Okay, good evening. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, thank you very much. And the class today was very, very insightful and precise. Please, the question I want to ask is on a broader term, though it has to do with policy. Why does it seem like policies we make in the third world, so to speak, fail. And whereas those of the Western world, like the UK, where you talked about your experience, their policies tend to be productive and carry through and provide deliverables. Whereas in like Nigeria, for example, in addition to policies some are solved, even with the same government, they will keep making excuses till the government winds down, either military or civilian government. So on a broad note, why does it seem that our policies keep failing us? And most times when a policy paper or a policy is being presented, people will just say they are speaking English. We know the end result is they want to chop the money and it will still be the same thing. So that's just my question. Why does our policies don't hold water? They tend to fail much of the time. Thank you very much.
If I'm going to answer you in one word, Daniel,
Yeah,
one word,
thank you.
institutions. You know what a system is, right? A political system or a
Okay.
government system. The system is made up of people, laws, and institutions. So the
Great.
laws, the policies, the principles, let's put all under the law. But who makes those laws? Is people, right? We are talking now,
Yeah.
we are people. When we talk about the policy cycle, it's people that will identify the problems, it's people that will formulate the policies, it's people that will implement the policies, it's people that will monitor the policies, it's people that will give a feedback, right? But the
Yeah.
institutions are actually the ones that are supposed to carry the policy. None of us here, I don't know in this group, but I don't think any of us here was born before 1st October 1960 when Nigeria got independence. It is that institution. Institution is the machinery of government. So that in 100 years to come, there is a federal civil service that has been there. There is a Ministry of Education, Ministry of Defense. Even when we merge power and works and housing, we come back and merge them. There is a WAEC somewhere. There is a JAM somewhere. There is a a Nigerian Army headquarters somewhere. There is a chief medical officer somewhere. It is the institutions that run with the policies and laws that the people make. While our policies in this part of the world fail, it's simply institutions. Were you here when Donald Trump lost election in which year was that? 2020, right? Or was it 21?
Yes.
So,
2020.
remember, he didn't want to hand over. Did you know when the former president Gbagbo lost election in Cote d'Ivoire, 2010, 2011? He didn't want to hand over.
Yes.
Until the French, it caused a small civil war until the French went to hijack him. Do you know that the same man that they removed Gbagbo for has gone for third term and is going for fourth term now? That's Africa. But in the US, when Donald Trump didn't want to hand over, after that, this thing, you know what happened? The institutions started shifting to Biden naturally. In short, without anybody telling them, they started giving Biden security reports. They started, in short, if the guy did not hand over on that 20th of January, naturally, everything will have shifted away from him. So it was not people now, it was institution. Where you have, in the past, when a court of appeal removed a governor that rigged the election, do you know they had to wait for the president to give signal, or the attorney general, before they implement, the police or INEC implement that. It took Yaradua to say no, rule of law. So the reason why our policies and laws fail is just one word: institutions. I want you to read, there is a book called Why Nations Fail. If you've ever read that book, or if you Google it, Why Nation Fails, it's just our institution. That's the answer to your question. Thank you.
We have one question in the chat box. Please let me read it. So it's from Deyemi, and he says, do Sami believe the kind of politicking and the bitterness among electorate makes policies productive, effective, and well-meaning? An instance, because our preferred candidate didn't win, everything coming from the government in power must be resisted. And then he has another question. He has echoed my sentiments on the need for legislative intervention on substance of policies. But what tenor will he suggest for a policy not to be tampered, altered, or reviewed?
So I will
Hello,
answer.
Sammy.
Yeah, I can hear you. The first question, do Sammy believe the kind of politicking and bitterness among the electorate? Yes, I believe so. I think there is no need flogging this issue. And it is not just the electorate. I think even from the political players. Somebody that talked about Ondo State, what was his name? The guy before, is it Daniel or the guy before Daniel? Talked of Ondo State, and he talked of how maybe some things that Jonathan's government did and when Buhari's government. So sometimes we are bit, and let's not even look at it at the national level. Let's go to the states. Most of the states' governors have had issues with their predecessors, even when the state governors were the one that chose their successors. It is because of power. Two things happen. Either when the successor comes, the predecessor still wants to control power in the states, so they have issues. Or when the successor comes, he wants to tarnish the image of the predecessor so that he looks good. So yes, I agree that bitterness is, actually, I don't even want to put it on the electorate, because to an extent, it is those that come in that do reverse these policies. The best the electorates do is feedback. The best they do is just accept or reject. But you know, the way Nigeria is, because of our strong man mentality, the electorate have not been able to really decide for policies. So I agree with him, but I think I'll put the blame more on the political class than on the electorate. And then for the tenor, so I'm not really saying that all policies must start and end within a time. I think I'll be committing a fallacy, especially a fallacy of generalization. What I'm saying is that people should not make policies that even they know that will not outlive them. The problem is not that when they make the policy, it is bad. But I'm saying that face this policy in such a way that you can implement a portion to the end, or that part, that portion of it, you should be able to implement it to the letter, so that you can implement and evaluate, and people will even get the benefit. There is no point you are building a road that will take 8 years when you only have 4 guaranteed years. I'm saying that face the road. So why do you want to unearth a road that people are managing? Then you will spend the 4 years digging the road. By the time you want to start repairing the road, they remove you. I'll give you an instance. In 1992, the bridge to my house in Kaduna collapsed. Not collapsed, but it shifted. Then the local government chairman, this one it was not his fault, but it's just an example, because that was during the Third Republic. After they've handed over to the ING, the local government chairman came and brought down the bridge so that they will now construct a new bridge. Guess what happened? Weeks after, the military took over. That bridge remained like that till 2000, when the governor elected in 99 came and fixed it. I can tell you for sure, I knew somebody that died because he fell down from. So it was just a rod, a steel that was on that bridge that we used from that 92 to 2000. Even bikes will have to manage and climb that rod. I know somebody, this one is not then say, somebody I knew as a kid, he came back in the night, he fell down, broke his head, and died. But we can excuse that chairman because it was not his intention that the military would take over. My point is that you can face a project if you are an elected official and you know you have 4 years guaranteed. There are long-term projects that you cannot face. But even when you are doing them, you can do them in tranches. But I'm not saying that there are policies that you know you cannot execute. Imagine this is 2025, and imagine if this present government is doing a policy that they will implement or finish implementing in 2032. Why not do the policy that you are sure you implement within your guaranteed period? When you are re-elected, you also continue the second phase. Then if luckily your successor buys into your idea, he continues. So you can have a long-term policy, but you can break it down into short implementable stages And that is how we can monitor that implementation, and even the people who benefit. Yemi, I don't know if I've answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sammy. I think that's all the questions we have today. So I don't know if you have any closing words for us before we end today.
Yes, I think my closing words is simple, like I started from beginning, is a call, is a challenge. My appreciation goes to the Electoral College for what they are doing. I believe that the participants have gained in every part. You will need to have everything inclusive, as in holistically, for you to make a change. So you need to understand policies, you need to understand the dynamics of elections, you need to even understand politics. You know, we just discussed this thing. There are the politics side of policies which we didn't cover. Then there is also the development side of policies. That's development. But everybody here, if you live here better than before 5 o'clock, I will have achieved my aim of spending 2 hours, 20 minutes with you. My hope is that when you become policymakers, when you become public office holders, when you are aides to these policymakers, legislative, executive, judiciary, we will see a different way of policy making in this country. We will see a tectonic shift, so that in the next 10 years, our children will not be having the same questions and complaints we're having here. With that, I say thank you for everybody that joined us, including my friends that are not part of this cohort but joined from my link. I also thank Kunle, Lisa for all they've done, and Chiamaka. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sammy. And please, everybody, you can unmute to thank him so much for this wonderful class. And with that, we have come to the end of this wonderful class. Thank you so much, Sammy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir, for
you.
your
My
insightful
pleasure.
presentation.
So much, sir.
Thank you.
God
Lovely
bless
night.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir,
you,
for
sir.
the insightful class. You
Thank you so much.
We
Thank
look
you
Very
forward
much,
to
sir.
Good night.
your
appreciate
next
Thank
lecture.
you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for the insightful
session.
lecture.
And we look forward to having you subsequently.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much on behalf of the Electoral College, Sami. It's been a very insightful class. It's always a pleasure having you. Please, you have the host function. You could just help us end the class. Good night, everyone.